Oh boy, it's finally time. Hey there everyone, I'm Garrett here from the Drive Back Podcast YouTube channel, and I've been talking about doing a movie collection overview for 2 goddamn years, and it's finally time to actually go ahead and do what I said I was going to do over the last 2 years. I have a lot of movies that I'm going to go through today, so I'm going to kind of quickly talk about each one in my collection, maybe why I have it, maybe defend it, we'll see what ends up happening, but that's going to be coming up here on the video. A quick word of warning though, I am not an authority in any way, shape, or form on what version of a film is best. I simply buy the movie that I want to buy because either I like the movie and want to have it in my collection, but it mostly kind of comes down to me just wanting the 4K version of everything because I'm kind of a nut for 4K, and as you can see behind me, I've got a 4K TV, so I'm going to use the goddamn thing. So I'm going to be going through all of my movies in alphabetical order, starting with 4K Blu-rays and normal Blu-rays, and then I'll be moving into the VHSs that I actually own in my collection. Those will probably not be in alphabetical order because I haven't quite sorted them yet. So let's kick this off with the first movie in my collection, which is a movie that I actually didn't buy. I got it as a birthday gift quite a while ago when the movie first came out from my uncle, and I hadn't even seen the movie until he bought it for me. And that's 127 hours. This is the Blu-ray version with James Franco, obviously is the Oscar-nominated actor in this movie. It's a good movie. It's, I wouldn't say it's fun to watch. There's a really interesting part with an arm getting cut off, spoiler alert. But other than that, it's a well-made movie. It's got a really good performance from James Franco, and in the collection it is. Next up is what I consider to be one of the best war movies ever made. So sue me, I have that opinion. It's 1917. This is the 4K version of the film. I love this movie. I hold it up there with Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down as one of the best war films ever made. I'm also just really into World War I. I think it's a much more interesting war to talk about historically than any other, and so in the collection it goes, and I fucking love this movie. Next is one of my pride and joy additions to my collection for my time at Best Buy, and that is the 4K redo of 2001: A Space Odyssey. This actually comes with an insert with some interesting stuff in it. I don't remember exactly what comes with it, but 2001: Space Odyssey is one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time, and it is a must-watch for anyone who is on the film journey and wants to learn more about historical films and things that set the genre forward. 2001: A Space Odyssey is a must-watch. Highly recommend that movie. So next up, and one of many things in my collection where I have multiples of the same movie. My parents actually got this for me as a Christmas gift, not knowing that I already had the film, and that is a Blu-ray triple feature for Stanley Kubrick. This has 2001: A Space Odyssey, The Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. Obviously, 2001: A Space Odyssey, must-watch movie. Clockwork Orange is a very good movie as well. The Shining, I'm not too keen on. It's still a very good movie, but it's definitely not my favorite Kubrick movie. I don't know, maybe I just need to rewatch it. It has been quite a while since I've seen it, so maybe I gotta throw the old Blu-ray in. Next up is another pride and joy addition to my collection, and that is an Alfred Hitchcock collection on 4K. This has 4 of his most well-known movies, including Rear Window, Vertigo, The Birds, and Psycho. Unfortunately, it doesn't have North by Northwest on it, which is also one of his better films, but these are 4 of his most well-known, and hopefully at some point, if it even exists, a North by Northwest 4K version will be in the collection as well. But that being said, I love this Blu-ray pack. It actually opens up book style for each one, which is really cool. And I mean, come on, it's Hitchcock. If you're a film buff, if you're a film fan, they have to be in your collection. Next up in the collection, another double. This is one that I have 2 different versions of the same movie, and the first is the Blu-ray version, which is the 35th anniversary edition of Alien. This is a really cool piece in my collection just because it does come with this insert little booklet there that has a full comic version of the film plus art cards and things like that. It is just unfortunate that it is Blu-ray, but you know, you do what you can. This takes up a really cool space on my shelf. Speaking of the same movie, Alien. This is the 40th anniversary 4K edition, and this is just one of those movies that I knew I needed to have in both different variants. The Alien series is one of my favorites just because I love sci-fi and I love the horror aspect of it as well, and if any new editions of these come out, I'm always going to get them. I'm hoping we get a 4K version of like the Septology or whatever they want to call it, but with this, it is in the collection. Keeping the theme going of multiple versions of the same movie, Alien Covenant, So Sue Me. I loved this movie. This is the Blu-ray edition that came out right after the movie came out, and if you actually open up it is book style. So it actually has all these kind of illustrations and artwork from the movie and such. Really cool stuff. Again, I love this movie. and I knew I had to have this special edition in my collection. And with that, here's the Steelbook 4K edition of Alien Covenant. I already talked about this movie and why I like it, but this one is Steelbook. It actually is like a matte finish, so it's really nice to hold, and the artwork is fantastic. You got the Neomorph on the front, and, spoiler, the first Xenomorph on the back. And I saw this on sale on Amazon or Target or somewhere, and I knew I wanted to have it, so into the collection it went. Next up is a movie I'm sad to say that I do not own in its 4K version yet, but as soon as it goes on sale I'll try and find one, and that's Aliens, the sequel to Alien, one of the best action movies of all time, up there with Terminator 2, and I would say the John Wick movies. Aliens is such a fun ride if you're into, the James Cameron style films. I just love these movies. This movie in particular is so much fun to watch. This used to be my every year Halloween movie that I would watch, and that has been dethroned by another movie coming up on this list. Next up here is another twofer, starting with Apocalypse Now. This is the special edition Blu-ray edition that comes with both the regular version of the movie and the Redux version, which was a redo. I think it was released theatrically by Francis Ford Coppola. Again, another film that's a necessary one for all film buffs to have in their collection, and I got it when it was on sale, and I knew I wanted it in the collection. But that being said, I also have the Final Cut edition, which includes 4K versions of both the theatrical and the Redux versions, but also includes Francis Ford Coppola's Final Cut, which was a later edition he recently released. It opens up book style, nice foil kind of holographic artwork, which is really nice. And it does come with the Hearts of Darkness documentary, which that's going to give me something to do tonight, because I have nothing better to do on a Friday night, apparently. Next up, a film I tend to enjoy more than most people, and that is the 2012, I think, Best Picture Oscar winner, The Artist. I love this movie. I love it a lot. I think you can do a lot with silent pictures, especially in the modern day. It's got great performances from Jean Dujardin, and I forget the supporting actress's name, Berenice Bejo. I am so sorry. But this movie's a lot of fun. It has really good music, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. And it surprises people with how much fun they can have with a silent movie in the 2000s. Next up, The Avengers. No explanation needed, really. But it is the only at Target exclusive edition. I don't know if you can see that. It comes with a bonus disc. Then I have no idea where that bonus disc is, because it came separately, and who knows wherever the fuck it decided to go. Another one that requires no explanation, the 4K version of Avengers Infinity War, which is probably the best movie in the MCU from like a group movie perspective. Yeah, no explanation needed. It's Avengers Infinity War. I mean, come on, it's one of the biggest movies of all time. Another one that requires no explanation is Endgame, not Infinity War. Duh. This is the Best Buy exclusive Steelbook edition, which was another purchase of mine when I worked for that great company. This actually is really cool because it does have the surviving members of the Snap on the front and the members that did not survive on the back, which is pretty sweet. Spoiler alert if you're one of the 2 people that didn't see this movie. Next up is a gift that I got from 2 very close friends of mine. One of them is named Kevin, the other one is named Nadia, who has the YouTube channel Horror and Morror, which I will link right here in the video. And that is the Back to the Future trilogy on 4K. 3 of my favorite movies of all time. I love this trilogy so much. Great performances and a great through line of plot throughout all 3 movies. Even though the 3rd movie is not as strong as the first 2, it's in the collection. It's one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It's a beautiful box that comes with everything you could want. More of that book style kind of interior, which I'm a huge fan of. Even though they're a little bit wider on the shelf, but who's really caring about that kind of thing? It looks cool. I love these movies. It's in the collection. Time for another movie that is kind of fit in for any major film buff's collection, and that's The Big Lebowski. This is I think it's a Target exclusive steelbook that comes in this kind of comic book style art. It's very matte finish, so it's nice to hold in the hand. It doesn't slip around too much. And this movie's a lot of fun. It's very funny, and it's a great movie to show people for the first time who don't know what the fuck this movie is, because they'll be just as confused as you were on your first time watching it. Last up on this stack is a movie that I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite war movies of all time, Black Hawk Down. This is the 4K edition of the movie, which apparently, it just wants to come sliding out of its case, does come with an extended version of the film, which I didn't know existed, so I'm probably going to have to give that a watch at some point. You can also tell where I got this movie. I get a lot of my physical movies from Best Buy, either because I worked there in the past, or because they have a good sale going on. Sometimes it's better than Amazon. It just really depends on when you get it. Next up is another film collection staple, Blade Runner, and this is the 30th Anniversary Collector's Edition on Blu-ray. I remember getting this on sale at Barnes & Noble, I think, which comes with 4 different versions of the film of probably the 40 million that exist. So it has the final cut, director's cut, theatrical cut, and the international theatrical cut. And it does also have this nice little bit of like storyboard art and concept art on the inside, which is fun to look at. Another good film in the collection. Next up in the collection, Blade Runner 2049. This movie is an incredible follow-up to the original, and it is one of the best looking movies I've ever seen on 4K. The colors, the cinematography, the production design all look really good, and it's just a really good goddamn movie that didn't get enough attention at the box office. So please, I believe it's on Netflix, go out there and give it some views, because this movie definitely deserves your views. Next up is a cheeky little addition into the alphabetical order, but hey, it's the name of the actual collection. It's Blomkamp Cubed, or Blomkamp 3, whatever you want to call it. This has District 9, Chappie, and Elysium inside of it. This was a purchase quite a while ago. Didn't really have any of these movies at the time on Blu-ray, and so got the triple pack. All 3 movies in here they definitely have some. District 9 is the best movie out of all of them, for sure. It was Oscar nominated. We'll talk more about that a little later. But this does include Chappie and Elysium. Chappie is not too bad, but it's also not that good either. And I actually haven't seen Elysium, so another thing for me to do on a lonely Friday night. But the Blomkamp Cube collection is in my collection. Next up is a cult classic, The Boondock Saints. This movie is not incredible. It is not even really that good, but it is a cult classic. My brother and I used to love watching this movie. I remember I went for Halloween as one of the Boondock Saints with a friend of mine back in high school, and it's got some really fun writing in it, some fun dialogue, but it's definitely rough around the edges because I believe it was a first-time filmmaker from Troy Duffy. So still a fun movie. In the collection it goes. Next up, another movie that doesn't really need any explanation, and that is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This movie is really, really fucking good. It is probably the best solo character movie in the MCU, apart from Shang-Chi, I would say. But what does require a little explanation is probably that right there. I don't have a Blu-ray 3D player. I don't have a 3D TV. I don't give a crap about 3D. The reason I bought this was because at the time, I was under the impression that since it was a little bit heavier, it was probably the coolest edition to have, or had like a lot of special features or something. So I have Captain America: Winter Soldier. Fantastic movie. It's in the collection. Next up, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's always in my top 3, top 5, top 10 whenever someone asks me, and that's Casablanca. This is specifically the 70th anniversary edition. It came in a big box set that also had some coasters, which I have lying around somewhere. This is, again, a perfect, if it's not a near perfect movie, it's perfect. The characters in this movie are great. The dialogue is great. The tension is great. Everything about Casablanca is awesome, and I swear, I promise you, it is coming up on the podcast sometime soon. So just hold on, we'll cover it so Adrian can finally watch it. Next up, a new addition to the collection, and I'm probably gonna get some heat for buying this, and I don't give a shit. And that's the Criterion Collection 4K version of Citizen Kane. I know there's some problems with the quality of the 4K upgrade on this or something. I don't care. It's a really good box. It's a really cool set for a movie that I don't necessarily think is the best movie ever made, or even in the top 5, but it is incredibly revolutionary for its time and a fucking awesome movie regardless. So in the collection it goes. It's also a very weighty case too. And as we know, I like a weighty case. Next up, another one of my personal favorite movies of all time, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We did cover this on the podcast quite a while back, and is a must-watch for people who are fans of sci-fi, aliens, abduction, anything like that. It's got a great plot, great characters, and great performances from Melinda Dillon and Richard Dreyfuss, a great score from John Williams, and this comes with 3 different versions of the movie on 4K, so theatrical, special edition, and director's cut. And actually, this was one of the first films to ever get a special cut of the movie, so all you Snyder Cut defenders can be happy that Close Encounters got it first. Next up, one of the more surprising movies in my collection, and that's Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I actually enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It's one of the better Sony animated movies. I enjoyed the second one as well, even though I don't own it. It's a fun movie with a great performance from Bill Hader. Mr. T is also in this movie, apparently. I forgot. But it's a fun animated movie. It's very unique looking, and it's a pretty good adaptation of a book that not a lot of people remember from their childhood. Next up, a movie that I have very fond memories of, Cloverfield, and this is the 4K version of the movie. It was on sale on Amazon, wanted to pick it up because I actually really enjoyed this movie. I know people get sick with it. I could care less. I think it's a fun movie. I mean, it was cool to see a monster movie from the perspective of someone just running away with the camera. Who knew it would be that much fun? Next up is the first in one of the very few horror movies I've ever purchased, and that's The Conjuring, which has this nice little holographic thing on the front with the clapping hand. We covered this whole series on the podcast. You guys know, if you listen to the podcast, this is one of my favorite horror movies that I've actually ever reviewed, even though ghosts don't exist. It's nice to see that it's kind of more of a fun movie, and in the collection it goes. Next up, another addition to the collection, and that is Conjuring 2, which is actually a sequel that's just as good as the first one, in my opinion. Even though it's a little bit more reliant on jump scares than you would think, it is still a very fun movie, very well made by James Wan, so in the collection it goes as well. Next up is probably one of the few TV shows that I own, and it's the only one that I will probably include in this video, and that's the incomplete series of Cowboy Bebop. Not the first anime I've ever seen, but certainly one of the best, and it is one of these shows that you can always show people, and I think they'll have a better appreciation of the art form, and it's just a really good show, and got a somewhat decent adaptation on Netflix recently, which unfortunately got canceled, but you know, who knows? We could have seen where that could have gone. Next up is one of the bigger boxes in my collection, and that is the Dark Knight trilogy. This is the Blu-ray trilogy pack. It's not the 4K one. Unfortunately, I don't own that yet. But this does come with all 3 films, also a book, the art and making of the Dark Knight trilogy, which is really cool. Again, some of the best superhero movies of all time. The Dark Knight is a perfect film in my opinion. And so this was a Christmas gift from quite a while ago. In the collection, it also sits. Another movie that really doesn't really require any explanation, and that's Deadpool. This is just the Blu-ray version of the film I got quite a while back because it was on sale somewhere, probably Target, Best Buy, somewhere. I love this movie. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's probably one of the better non-MCU Marvel movies of the last 10 years. Unfortunately, I don't own Deadpool 2. I don't own that yet. I'm trying to get the 4K double pack for a good price. Also waiting to see when Deadpool 3 comes out, if they're going to do a trilogy for that. Next up in the collection, one of my favorite films of all time. When we've reviewed it on the podcast, because it is a Christmas movie, and we reviewed it for Christmas, Die Hard. This is the 4K edition of the movie. This is the 30th anniversary edition. Don't know what that really means. Got commentary and bonus features and stuff like that. Die Hard is a near perfect movie. It's a perfect 3-act structure with great characters and great dialogue and great action. One of the best action movies of all time. Please watch this movie if you haven't already. Next up, I've covered this movie already, but I had to get it on 4K because it was on sale. District 9, one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. Neil Blomkamp is a supremely underrated filmmaker, and he really deserves more love than he gets, even though he does get a lot already. Just go shower him with all the love you can. Okay, this guy's awesome. District 9 was an awesome movie, nominated for Best Picture, which is really cool. Yeah, had to get it. Loved it when it came out. Still love it to this day. Next up, another Steelbook edition. Django Unchained. I believe this was a Target exclusive at the time. I like how it has a kind of alternating red and black cover on the front and back. This movie is a lot of fun, a great revenge thriller from Quentin Tarantino, with great performances by Jamie Foxx, an Oscar-winning performance from Christoph Waltz, and Leonardo DiCaprio, who was very, very much a big part of this movie, even though for how little he's in it. Very good movie. In the collection it goes with a beautiful matte finish steelbook case. Next up, another movie that requires no explanation, and that is Doctor Strange, one of my favorite movies in the MCU. Not one of the best movies, but one of my favorite ones. I really enjoyed this movie. I really enjoyed Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal of the character, and it's a really good looking movie with its special effects. So in the collection it goes as well. Again, no real surprise there and no real explanation necessary. Another really cool movie in the collection is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. This is a satire on the Cold War era fears of the 1960s and 70s, and it actually comes in a very cool book version of the case, which has, I'm guessing, some interviews or something inside there. A really good movie that's actually still relevant to this day, because we're facing nuclear annihilation at any moment, I'm sure. But a really good movie. Surprisingly, not a lot of people my age or around my age have seen it, and I highly recommend this movie. A lot of fun, very funny, and has some really good performances. Next up, another newer movie, year-wise at least, into the collection, and that is Dune. One of my favorite movies of 2021. This movie is beautiful, it is gorgeous, it is well-directed, it is well-acted, and well-adapted off of the source material. Surprisingly got a lot of Oscars attention, which is really cool that genre films were getting a lot of attention last year. A very good movie. If you didn't like the David Lynch one, or if you just want to see something very good that's sci-fi, that's not Star Wars or Star Trek, Dune is very good. Next up, one of many Christopher Nolan movies in my collection, and that is Dunkirk. This is the 4K version of the film, obviously. A very good war movie. Very different than a lot of other war movies, with an excellent score from Hans Zimmer, probably his career best score that he's ever written, and great performances all the way around. Dunkirk is one that I would highly recommend that a lot of people watch, even if they're not into war movies. Next up, I had teased this earlier, this is my yearly Halloween movie that I watch every single Halloween day, and that is Evil Dead 2, one of my favorite horror movies ever. Never thought it would be. I love this movie to death. It is a perfect mix of funny and weird and scary. It is a lot of fun with an incredible performance from Bruce Campbell. I believe this is some sort of, edition or anniversary edition, I'm sure. Such a good movie. Highly, highly recommend Evil Dead 2. Next up, Ex Machina, an incredible movie, and again, another completely awesome movie from A24. Director Alex Garland did a really good job on this movie. Alicia Vikander is very good. Domhnall Gleeson is very good. Oscar Isaac is very good. This movie is surprisingly effective at everything it does. Just unfortunate that's another movie about the dangers of AI. AI is just such a cool thing. I can't imagine. It's so stupid. People, invest in AI. It's awesome. Next up, another one of my favorite movies in a two-pack, and that is Fantasia and Fantasia 2000. I was a very big band geek when I was in high school, loved classical music every once in a while, and Fantasia 2000 are very nostalgic for me. We watched these in band class. I actually do prefer Fantasia 2000, even though it's not a better movie. Fantasia, the first one, is much better. But I prefer Fantasia 2000. I think the music choices are a lot better and a lot more modern. Going from west to east, one animated movie to another, next up is Ghost in the Shell, the original animated version of the film. This is an incredible achievement in terms of bringing anime to the West. This was one of the first movies that critics really sunk their teeth into before Studio Ghibli started coming more over in mass. This is an awesome movie. I have yet to see the actual live-action one. I've heard bad things, but I've also heard some decent things, but the original animated one is in my collection. Next up, another set of movies that have to be in every film owner's collection. That's the Godfather trilogy. This is a certain Corleone Legacy Edition, which does come with some art cards and a map of the Corleone family tree. This is obviously 1, 2, and 3 in one box. I did find the 4K one, but it was still not a very decent price for it yet, so I didn't really want to pick it up. But this is the Blu-ray collection of the original 3 movies. Next up, a movie that I wanted to throw in the collection, and it is related to the last one, and that is The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. This is Francis Ford Coppola's trying to redo the third movie that came out. I haven't actually watched this yet, so that is a little bit of a confession. It doesn't exist on 4K, so this had to be on Blu-ray. I've heard better things than Godfather Part 3, because he finally was able to do some new things with it. Next, a movie that I surprisingly love, and that is 2014's Godzilla. I really, really enjoyed this movie. Doesn't matter that Godzilla's not in it that much. It's well directed, it's well acted, and it's well paced. It's an awesome movie, and it really follows the Spielbergian Jaws kind of rule, where you don't want to show the monster unless you have to. A very, very good movie in my opinion. Next up, a movie that I enjoy, and I'm probably going to get some heat for, and that is Gravity. I really enjoy Gravity. I really, really dig this movie, and I like it more than The Martian. I don't care what you think. The Martian is nonsensical in a lot of what it does. So is Gravity, but Gravity I thought was a far more entertaining, intense film than The Martian was, and Gravity is in my collection as well. Next up, my Best Picture winner for 2021, and that is The Green Knight. This is the 4K edition of the movie. This is a near-perfect movie. I love this movie. One of my best theater experiences post-COVID. An awesomely beautiful told movie that does update on the legend, showing the flaws of the character, instead of just the positives. So The Green Knight is a beautiful movie, and highly recommend it if you have not seen it yet. Next up, I'm going to get these two movies out of the way at the same time. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and Guardians of the Galaxy 2. They're James Gunn movies. I love James Gunn. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. No explanation needed. They're just awesome films. Next up is another surprising movie in my collection, and that's Hardcore Henry, an action movie filmed completely from first-person perspective, like a video game. It was a really cool experiment. I got to experience this in theaters. I believe I donated to its Indiegogo campaign back in the day, and it's just a fun movie. It's not very good. It's not even a great movie or a good movie, but it's a really cool experiment, and I enjoy watching it, and it's in the collection. Next up, another controversial opinion time, I have The Hateful Eight. The Hateful Eight, I think, is personally Quentin Tarantino's best modern movie. Yes, it's better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm sorry to my brother, it's true. This movie is an awesome movie, kind of all done in one location, kind of like a big game of cat and mouse or Clue in a secluded cabin. Really, really good movie with awesome performances all the way around. Hateful Eight is just a wonderful movie. Highly recommend it. Next up, it's time for a hill for Garrett to die on. It's a movie that I had guilty pleasure love, and that's Hellboy. This is the 2019 one. No, this movie is not good. Yes, I enjoy this movie, particularly the last act with all the gruesome, bloody violence going on. I've talked about this movie before on the podcast. It's a huge guilty pleasure of mine. I think it's a lot of fun to watch, even though it is not very good. Another two movies I'm just going to get done in the same video. We got Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey and The Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug. No, I don't own the third one. It's not because I don't like it, it's because I just never picked it up. But I'm also waiting to pick up a 4K version of the trilogy. Same with Lord of the Rings, which I'll be going over Lord of the Rings in a minute. But these are in my collection as well. Desolation of Smaug is definitely the best of the three movies. And highly recommend the second one. I think it's a very good movie. The other two, not so much. Pretty quick, this one, Hot Fuzz. Really love this movie. I dig pretty much every movie in the Cornetto trilogy. This one is awesome. The Ultimate Edition means nothing. It just has some extra, like bonus features and stuff like that. Some Blu-ray controls when they were pushing that. Hot Fuzz is a very well-written movie, very funny, very well acted, and very well written. Highly recommend this movie if you haven't seen it yet. Time for another confession. I own this movie and actually haven't watched it yet, and that's Howl's Moving Castle. I bought it because it's a Studio Ghibli movie. Why? Because Studio Ghibli makes nothing but great films, in my opinion. I just haven't had the chance to watch this yet. Maybe another plan for a lonely Friday night. But it is in the collection, a beautiful animated film that, again, I have yet to watch. But I did want to get it when it was on sale, and so that's why I have it. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and get two more movies done at the same time, because they're right next to each other alphabetically, and it's the same director. Inception and Interstellar. Both very good movies from Christopher Nolan. I would say Interstellar is a little bit better now that we kind of have more time to analyze it. But Inception is just a historic film. A lot of people saw it in theaters, and it was a lot of fun to watch. But Interstellar is a beautiful, and it's a moving film too, with an ending that is very, very, very well done. Alrighty, kind of a weirder pick, but again, no real explanation required, and that's Iron Man 3. I don't own Iron Man 1 or 2 on Blu-ray or on 4K. I have Iron Man 3 because I bought it back in the day when it originally came out on Blu-ray. I enjoyed this movie. I think it is better than Iron Man 2. It's definitely not one of the worst movies in the MCU by far, and it has some pretty fun performances in it, so I do enjoy Iron Man 3. Probably one of the most least well-known movies in my collection, and that is It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt. One of the best animated movies of all time. If you can find this movie somehow, highly recommend it. It is an animation film done entirely with stick figures. You heard me right. But it is moving, it is engaging, and Don Hertzfeldt deserved all the awards attention for this movie. Fantastic film. If you have the chance to watch it, please do. Let's talk some guilty pleasures, shall we? And I'll go over the next three of these in a row because they're all pretty much the same movie. First up, Jackass 3. I do own Jackass 1, 2, and 2.5 on DVD. They're just not currently where I live right now. But Jackass 3, I do own. Love this movie to death. It is so much fun. I remember great feelings, great memories of going to see that in theaters. And the complimentary piece of that is Jackass 3.5, which is kind of more content that was filmed around the same time the movie. Shot more documentary style, but has a lot more funny stunts and a lot more funny content in it that is, I think, worth it as kind of having as a kind of appendix to the original film. And with that is Jackass Forever, the newest one in the franchise, one of my favorite movies of 2022. Love this movie, probably the best one out of all of them in my opinion. I do have to kind of go through and rewatch them all again, but this is a newer addition to the collection too. Wholeheartedly, I love this movie, and it was nice to see friends getting together having fun during a time when we really couldn't get together with our own friends. So love Jackass Forever, and I love all the Jackass movies actually. Alright, more movies I can all get done one at once. First up is John Wick Chapter 1, which I have on both Blu-ray and on 4K. I just recently rebought the movie on 4K because I didn't own it, and it was it's a very good looking movie in terms of how it's made. What's even better looking in my opinion is John Wick Chapter 2, which these both I haven't even opened yet. But John Wick Chapter 2, an awesome follow-up to an awesome original movie. And of course, John Wick Chapter 3, this is the Best Buy exclusive Steelbook version, which is pretty awesome, looking like paint splatter. I wish it was more of a matte finish because it's not as nice when it's a little slipperier to hold. But all three John Wick movies are fantastic and cannot wait for John Wick Chapter 4. Another movie I'm going to get some heat for potentially is Joker. I love this movie. I think it's a very, very good movie in my opinion. Very well acted, very well written, very well directed. And Joaquin Phoenix is absolutely incredible as the Joker. I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with the sequel. Oh, so many movies. Alrighty, next up is a 4-pack. This is the Jurassic Park collection. This does, in fact, come with Jurassic Park 1, Jurassic Park The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, and Jurassic World. No, it does not come with Fallen Kingdom. This came out before Fallen Kingdom was released on Blu-ray, and it does not have Dominion in it, because both those movies suck. But I am waiting for all 6 to come out in a pack, which I did see there is a 6-pack movie collection at Best Buy, waiting for that to go on sale. But until then, this is the Jurassic Park collection with the 4 movies that are more redeemable than the last 2. Next up is an interesting movie that not a lot of people have heard of, and that's Killing Them Softly. This was an attempt to make a movie similar to Quentin Tarantino that wasn't necessarily all 100% great, but was a really fun movie to watch and had a lot of big names in it. Brad Pitt, James Gandolfini, Ray Liotta, Scoot McNairy, a bunch of names that people know now, in a fun movie that I think it's fun to watch, not necessarily being incredible. Next up, one of my guilty pleasure movies we've talked about on the podcast before. We actually reviewed it, and Adrian didn't like it, and that's King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. I actually really like this movie quite a bit. I think it has some awesome action, really inspires me for D&D writing, has some really fun music, and just provides an interesting take on the King Arthur legend that the style would be copied with the later Robin Hood film that wasn't as good. But, you know, I know some people don't like this one. I do, but I own it and I like it. Another movie that I like is King Kong. This is the Peter Jackson version of the film. Really highly enjoyed this movie. I think it's a very good update on the original film with a fun cast, some visual effects that don't really hold up as well anymore, which you can see on the Corridor Crew channel. But I still love this movie. I think it's a very well done remake, and Peter Jackson clearly has a love for King Kong, and it shows here. Next up, The Kingsman. This is both Secret Service and the Golden Circle in one pack. They are both the 4K versions of the film. I don't own The King's Man because I don't think the movie is that good, but I just haven't had the chance to purchase it yet to complete the collection. But this is an awesome 2-pack. I don't remember where I got this. Maybe it was from Best Buy, but I love these movies. Really good action, really good stunt coordination, and just a lot of fun to watch. Next up, one of the best movies I have ever seen, and that is Lawrence of Arabia. This is the 60th anniversary edition steelbook case. I did order this through Amazon, I think. I love this movie. One of the best movies I've ever seen, in my top 10, top 3, top 5, whatever, for sure. Lawrence of Arabia is an awesome movie. Next up, an awesome movie, but one of my favorite directors currently, and that is The Lighthouse from the awesome director Robert Eggers. Highly appreciate this movie. It is super fun, super interesting, and really worth your time. A very good movie. Next up, a movie that could have been product placement but turned out to be a really good fucking movie, and that is the Lego Movie. This movie is awesome. It has emotional merits to it. It's got heart. The cast is awesome, and it is just a beautiful animated movie, which looks stop motion, but it's actually computer animated. So, hey, great movie. In the collection it goes. Next up, in my opinion, one of the best non-MCU Marvel movies there exists, Logan. Logan is a beautiful movie that has Oscar-worthy performances from Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart in it, and this actually does include the Logan Noir version, which is in black and white, I think. Haven't watched the Noir version, but this movie is incredible. Easily one of the best movies that is not MCU in the Marvel universe. Alrighty, next up, it is the biggest box. Yes, the biggest box in my collection, and that is the Lord of the Rings, the extended edition of the trilogy. This box set is awesome. It opens up with a nice map. It's got all 3 movies, both, you know, I'm sure it's got theatrical versions and the extended edition versions. I just love this box. It is huge. It is heavy. It feels good. Again, one of the best trilogies in all of film. The Return of the King is one of my favorite movies of all time, also one of the best movies of all time in my opinion, so the trilogy is definitely in my collection. From one of the best trilogies of all time to one of the best action movies of all time, Mad Max Fury Road, which I unfortunately do not own on 4K yet. This is the Blu-ray version, and this unfortunately doesn't come with the metal, dust and metal version, whatever it is, the black and white one, which I do want to watch very badly. But Mad Max Fury Road is one of the best action movies of the last 20 years. And it was amazing that it got so many Oscar nominations despite being a genre film. Huge achievement, and actually won the most Oscars that year too. So take that, Oscar bait movies. Next up, a movie I didn't think I would like as much as I did, and that is Mandy, an indie film from Panos Cosmatos that is awesome, incredibly violent, incredibly disturbing, and incredibly beautifully done. This movie is really, really good, with a great performance from Nicolas Cage. Andrea Riseborough is also fantastic as well. And this is an awesome looking steelbook with like a heavy metal, like basically like a black metal version of the logo on the back. Really enjoyed this movie. You can watch it on Shudder if you have Shudder. Very good movie. Highly recommend. Next up, one of my favorite comedy movies of all time, tied for number 1, is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. This is the 40th anniversary Blu-ray edition of the movie. It does not have a 4K version that I know of yet, but Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I know this movie like the back of my hand. I love this movie so much. We covered it on the podcast. I gave it a perfect 100. It just is that good. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Super absurd, super weird, and a total satire of legends and myth. It's seriously good. Next up, it's guilty pleasure time again, and it is the 1990s Mortal Kombat movie. A movie that is so much fun, even though it is a really bad movie. It's in my collection because I love the movie. I love to watch this movie. I love to get drunk when I watch it. I don't own the 2021 Mortal Kombat yet. I do enjoy that movie, non-ironically. But this one I do really actually enjoy. It's a lot of fun to get drunk with this one, and to show people who've never seen it before. It's so bad that it's good. Next up, it's kind of a guilty pleasure, but not really, because it's a good movie. And that's The Mummy. This is the 4K re-release of this movie. I love The Mummy. I love this movie. I love Pulp Adventure. I don't actually own The Mummy Returns on 4K or at all. I'm looking to get it. It's in my list on Amazon. But I love this movie. It is super fun, super cool. Brendan Fraser is just super charismatic as always. Luckily, he's starting to get more work if Warner Brothers didn't go and cancel a movie that he was in. That being said, The Mummy is a great movie. Highly recommend this movie. Time for another weird defense here, but I do own My Neighbor Totoro. I don't think this is the best Studio Ghibli movie. I don't even think it's a great movie. It's just a good one that he did. I did buy this before I watched it, and it's a well done movie. It's a very well animated movie. But in terms of plot and in terms of everything, there are stronger movies from Studio Ghibli and from Miyazaki. But it's one of those movies that I really feel bad not having it in my collection. So in my collection, it goes. Alrighty, next up on the list, the last M movie, and that is the Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie. One of my favorite TV shows of all time. They made it into a theatrical release where they did This Island Earth as the movie they were riffing on. Not really a reason that it needed to be a theatrical release. It's just kind of a niche movie that I have in my collection, but really hilarious. I love the guys over at Mystery Science Theater, and it's an awesome movie to have in the collection. Alrighty, starting off next, we have Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, the first anime movie I ever watched. And it is one of the ones I have very fond memories of watching for the first time. An incredible English voice cast as well. In fact, most of the English dubs of the Studio Ghibli movies have very good voice casts in them. So both the English and Japanese versions are both very good to watch. And I love this movie. And props to Hayao Miyazaki for putting a strong female character into these movies. Back in, I believe this was in the 80s or 90s. Awesome work, and I highly recommend this movie. Next up is a little bit of a guilty pleasure as well, but not after Top Gun Maverick, and that is Oblivion, a movie also directed by Joseph Kosinski, director of Top Gun Maverick, with Tom Cruise in it. It's a fun sci-fi movie, and it has some pretty interesting messages in it as well, with some pretty good visual effects, so Oblivion is also in my collection. Next up, a movie that I think is pretty as close to perfect as possible as you can be, and that is Pan's Labyrinth. This is the 4K version that came out somewhat recently. We did cover this on the podcast, where I give it 100. I think it is a perfect movie. Incredible acting, incredible production design, incredible costumes. Highly recommend Pan's Labyrinth if you have never seen it before. It will change your mind on Guillermo del Toro, I swear. Next up, probably the oddest movie in my collection, one that I'm proud to own, but I still have yet to watch it because it came with a barf bag, and that is Pink Flamingos. This is, in fact, the Criterion Collection version of this movie. Have yet to watch it. It's supposed to be a very disturbing movie about the filthiest people to live, or something like that. First movie from John Waters. Really looking forward to watching this, and got it on sale at Barnes & Noble. They had a big Criterion Collection sale, so got this at the same time as Citizen Kane, although I wouldn't put them on the same level, I don't think. Next up, another action classic, Predator. This is the 4K version of the movie. I do enjoy this movie quite a bit. I don't think it is the strongest movie in the Predator saga, which is kind of weird to say. It definitely is just full of trailer lines and a lot of pointless action, but it's good pointless action. It's a bunch of sweaty guys in the jungle. Who doesn't want that? Next up, it's another bit of confession time, and it's a movie that I own that I haven't seen yet. And that's Princess Mononoke. This is one of the few, this and Howl's Moving Castle I haven't seen. I bought these because they were on sale, bought them together, and I knew that I was going to like this movie. Yeah, it is in my collection. This is the G-Kids version of the film, I believe. I was looking for the Disney one, but they don't really sell those anymore. Princess Mononoke in the collection, have yet to watch it, so hopefully that's coming up in a couple days. Next up, another two that I can get done at the same time, because it's the same movie. First up, Prometheus. I don't care. This movie is good, and I really enjoy it. This is the 4-disc collector's edition that came out when the movie first released. It does, again, have the Blu-ray 3D in there, but who uses those, am I right? But it does come with a cool little art book you can kind of see tucked inside. And then I also did buy it on 4K, just because this movie is a very gorgeous film. It's well-designed, well art-directed, and has very good production design. So it really lends itself to a good 4K release. So two versions of the same movie. Next up, a staple of any film collector's collection, Pulp Fiction. This is the Blu-ray version of the film. I do not have a 4K version. I don't know if a 4K version exists, but if it does, it's probably on my list somewhere to buy. This is one of Quentin Tarantino's most well-known films. It is among his top 3, I would say, with another movie coming up soon that I think is his overall best. But Pulp Fiction, a no-brainer collection edition here. Next up, yet another one of my favorite movies of all time, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this is specifically a steelbook case version of it. I think I got this at Target or Best Buy, one of the two. But it has a textured front, so I don't know if you can actually see that on camera. Probably not. But Indy himself is very textured on the front. Just a near flawless movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark is so much goddamn fun. And we talked about all these movies on the podcast too. One of my favorites of all time. Alright, time for another guilty pleasure favorite of mine. Even though it's just a good movie, I feel like not a lot of people really appreciate this movie, and that is Ready Player One. I love this movie. I watch it probably once a year because I love fan service. I like when things are thrown together and, Overwatch is in the same world as DeLoreans and all that kind of stuff. So Ready Player One is in my collection for sure. It's also just an incredible 4K version. It looks really good on pretty much any 4K TV, so in the collection, it goes. Next up, the movie I teased earlier, Tarantino's best movie in my opinion, Reservoir Dogs. Love this movie, love its inclusion in my collection. I watch this movie probably about once a year because of its awesome dialogue. Highly recommend. An interesting inclusion here because I think I got this movie as a gift, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This is the only movie from this trilogy that I have, even though the movies are very good. I haven't watched this in a very long time, so maybe I'll have to rewatch it either for the podcast or just on my own time. Alright, another new addition to the collection, new being that I actually purchased this today, and that is the 4K version of RoboCop. I have never heard of this distributor before, Arrow Video. It was just on the shelf and it was on sale, so I definitely wanted to pick it up. A great movie, great sci-fi, great action, but also just a good satire as well. Alrighty, now we come to one of the best Star Wars films in the Disney lineup, and that is Rogue One. I don't have this on 4K yet. I really want to. Trust me, I want it. But Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies. The battles in this are incredible. Gareth Edwards deserves so much praise for what he did with this movie, even though the first 30 minutes were kind of weird, but super good movie. Alrighty, mentioned it earlier, and here it is, Saving Private Ryan. This is the 20th anniversary edition 4K release. Very good war movie. I wouldn't say it's overrated, but it definitely gets a lot more praise as the best war movie of all time, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it is an incredible film, easily an A+ effort from Steven Spielberg. Another bit of a weird addition to my collection because I never thought I would actually purchase this movie, but it is the 4K release of Saw Unrated. This is one of James Wan's first films. I love James Wan as a director. Did a great job with this, even though it sometimes does verge on the pornographic in terms of its violence and its gore. Still a really great movie, highly recommend it, and it really pushed a lot of the genre forward. Next up, a difficult movie to watch, but a necessary one in my collection because I think it's one of those movies you do need to watch every once in a while to remind yourself that the world is pretty shit, and that is Schindler's List. This is the 4K 25th anniversary edition, a really, really powerful film. Again, it is hard to watch, but it is a necessary watch, and so for that reason alone, it's in my collection. Next up, one of my pride and joy additions to my collection, probably my most excited one that I actually bought and own, and that is the Criterion Collection version of Seven Samurai. This is an awesome looking box. It slides out. It's got the whole book style insert inside of it. Seven Samurai is one of those movies that I didn't expect to love as much as I did until we reviewed it on the podcast. One of the most influential movies of all time. Akira Kurosawa is a master at what he does. Highly recommend this movie if you've never seen it before. It is beautiful. Alrighty, another Cornetto movie, Shaun of the Dead. I love this movie. It is so much fun to watch, so well written, so well acted, and Shaun of the Dead is really a necessary inclusion in anyone's film collection, really. It's just a lot of fun. If you've never seen Shaun of the Dead before, I would say this one is probably the best, tied with Hot Fuzz out of the Cornetto trilogy. Highly recommended. Whew, alrighty, we're getting through them. Next up is Shazam, a movie that took me by surprise that I actually really enjoy this movie. I had to get it on 4K as soon as it came out. I enjoyed watching it in the theater, and I enjoy watching it at home. Great story, great characters, and one of the most surprising movies in the DC canon. Alrighty, another movie from Denis Villeneuve, Sicario. This movie is really good. One of the best moments of tension in any film ever. Sicario is an incredible film. If you haven't seen it before, highly recommend it. If you're a fan of Dune and of Blade Runner 2049, it's the same director. Really, really good. Next up, one of the best Western animated films of all time, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This movie is incredible, and it has no right to be as good as it is. But with its really well done writing, excuse me, I can't speak today. I've been talking too much about movies. Really well done writing, and the fact that it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, this movie's incredible. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's so much better than you think it is, I swear. Next up, a movie that I enjoy more than the first one, and that is Spider-Man Far From Home. This is the Best Buy exclusive, I think, steelbook that has art on the front as well as art on the back. I like this better than Homecoming, and I just don't own No Way Home yet. So Far From Home is in my collection. I really enjoy this movie. I love Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie, and it's a lot of fun, and one of the better Spider-Man movies in my opinion. Next up, what I consider to be the best animated film ever made, Spirited Away. This is the one that blew me away after Nausicaa, and I had to show and tell about as many people as possible about this movie who hadn't seen it before that they needed to watch it. Spirited Away is a flawless film, easily Hayao Miyazaki's masterpiece. Sorry, Mononoke fans, I do think this one is better, even though I haven't seen Princess Mononoke. That'll probably change, who knows? But Spirited Away is a perfect 100 film. Holy recommend this film, especially to people who don't like anime. This will change your mind. Alrighty. Pretty big one here in terms of the box it's in, and that is the Star Wars Complete Saga. This is the Blu-ray collection of the 6 original films, so the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, that comes in a very nice book-style case, having artwork and all the different things for each movie, and a lot of bonus content, which I've watched over the years. Obviously, this is a must-have for any film collector's collection, just because of how important the films are. Hot on the heels of the original films, Star Wars The Force Awakens. I don't have this on 4K yet. I know there are 4K versions that exist, but Force Awakens was actually surprising. I enjoyed this movie when it first came out. Still enjoy it to this day. I think it's a lot of fun, even though it is kind of a little bit of a rework of the original movie, but who cares? It's for a new generation, and I enjoyed this movie. I love having hills to die on. Next up, Star Wars The Last Jedi. I really enjoy this movie. I don't care what any of you have to say. Luke is handled very well in this movie. I wholly think that. This is a great film. Is it a great Star Wars film? That's debatable. But I really enjoy this movie. I think Rian Johnson did a great job. And this is a weird kind of thicker box that Target had when it first came out. It's a cool box, and it's on my shelf. And you don't have the complete series without it. So it's on the shelf. Alrighty, and another one that I think most of us can agree on, Rise of Skywalker, which is the last Star Wars movie in the mainline Skywalker saga. I do own this because I want to have the entire saga, even though it's not the best movie in the franchise. It is still in my collection because I want to be a completionist and have everything, which kind of sucks because I don't have Solo, which you can probably tell going in alphabetical order. Not because I don't like it, just because I haven't found it for a good price yet. Next up, another new addition to the collection, both in year, but also the fact that I also bought this one today, and that is the Suicide Squad on 4K. This is the good one, the James Gunn one, not the one with the really bad Jared Leto Joker in it. This one is so much fun and has James Gunn all over it, where he's allowed to be as unhinged as possible and go the full R-rated. This movie rocks. Next up, a movie that I seem to enjoy, and I thought a lot more people did, but it seems to be a very kind of maybe controversial or not as liked, and that's Super 8, a J.J. Abrams film that feels as much like an old classic Spielberg movie as possible. And it's a lot of fun, and it has pretty decent child actors in it, and it was kind of Stranger Things before Stranger Things, and again, I really enjoyed this movie, I dig it, and that's why it's in my collection. And a movie that continues the disturbing trend of hating on movies because it seems to be the popular thing to do, Tenet. I really like Tenet. I think it's a really smart movie. Is it above the heads of some people? Sure. Is it complicated? Sure. But it's a really fun movie, visually and just performance-wise, a lot of fun. And John David Washington is a great actor, and he deserves a lot more roles in the starring role. Next up, perhaps considered to be one of the best action blockbusters of all time, and I certainly throw it up there too, Terminator 2. And this is the 4K version of the movie. I love Terminator 2. Again, that's why I have it. But it's just an incredible movie all the way around. Really well made. James Cameron outdoes himself with the sequel. I mean, the original is a fun movie. This one is properly good. Alrighty, I'm not going to yell at you like Christian Bale is, but Terminator Salvation is in my collection as well. I bought this movie when it came out, because I did enjoy it when it first came out, but I was a lot younger then. It's not the strongest movie. It's not even particularly good, but I do own it. I used to enjoy it. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I will have to watch this one again, but it is in the collection. It does have the director's cut, apparently. On to another awesome steelbook I have, and that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film in the franchise, which is my favorite of all the slasher horror movies, because I think this is one of the first ones, if I'm not mistaken, in my history. I love this movie, and I was actually lucky enough to go to Halloween Horror Nights last year in Hollywood, where they did a recreation of this movie as a maze, and it was awesome, and got to experience it kind of in person. Love this movie, and it was a real game changer for the time. Alrighty, this is a controversial one within my family, and that is The Revenant. My dad doesn't like this movie. I think it's near perfect. We have loving conversations all the time. Leonardo DiCaprio is amazing in this movie. Absolutely love him. The visuals, the fact that it's all shot in natural daylight is just incredible. It's really an achievement, and I'm sad that it didn't get more awards than it did. Alrighty, and a recent addition to the podcast episodes, and that's The Thing, the original John Carpenter one, not The Thing from Another World, but the 80s Thing movie. This movie is great. I love this movie. It is one of the best uses of horror in an isolated location that I can think of. Also, that Among Us, kind of style, who's the imposter kind of thing, really is made very popular here. Love The Thing, one of the best movies of the 80s for sure. Horror movies, specifically. Love The Thing. Alright, time for probably one of the worst movies that I own, and that's Thor: The Dark World. I bought this when it first came out because I was a huge Marvel fan and I was trying to have the whole collection, and so that's why it's here. It's not a very good movie. It's easily the worst movie in the MCU besides The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2, but I do own it and it is in my collection, so unfortunately I do have to stare at it whenever I look at my bookshelf. Right, a really interesting one here that I managed to get on sale, and that's the 30th anniversary edition of Total Recall on 4K. This is a movie that I've seen maybe once in my life, but I remember enjoying it quite a bit, and it was game-changing when it came to practical effects and visual effects, and I believe it was an Oscar winner for its visual effects, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but really enjoyed this movie when I was younger, and I knew I had to get it when it came out on 4K, so here it is. Next up, I'm missing the first one and the second one, but I do have Toy Story 3. This movie is so much better than anyone thought it was going to be, and it is very emotional, surprisingly, which is actually not that surprising given Pixar's pedigree, but Toy Story 3 is a very good movie, and it's in the collection. Next up, V for Vendetta, an awesome cautionary tale movie about fascism and the far right taking over a country, which could have happened in this country not too long ago, but love this movie. We reviewed it on the podcast towards the beginning, and I've had this for a very long time. I love this movie. Alrighty, another new addition to my collection, and that's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I love this movie. I've loved it for so long. Pure Imagination is one of my favorite movie songs of all time, and I knew as soon as I saw this on sale on Amazon, I had to pick it up. Had to put it in the collection. This beautiful foil artwork just looks so good on the shelf, and this movie is it's timeless. It really is. Alright, we're finally here. The last 4K/Blu-ray movie that I have on my shelf, and that is World War Z. A surprising one because it's not that good of a movie, but I did buy it not too long ago because I did enjoy it. I read the book, and Brad Pitt was actually surprisingly decent in this movie. Not V for Vendetta. That was the last movie we did. World War Z, surprisingly good in moments. Even though its zombies are not very believable, hey, you do what you can. It's still a fun movie. So we've finally gotten through all the 4K Blu-rays and Blu-rays, and now we're moving on to VHSs. First up is actually a sealed white clamshell, The Black Cauldron. This is one of the coolest movies in my collection because this movie is not very fondly loved when it comes to Disney movies, but it is sealed, and it still has price stickers and stuff on it, so I definitely want to hold on to this for as long as possible. Next up, another sealed white clamshell. This time it's Lady and the Tramp, a movie that I actually don't have a lot of fond memories of. I never really watched this one as a kid, but I knew when I saw it sealed, it was still stickered up. I definitely wanted to get a hold onto it just as a part of the collection, and it is sealed. It's all still ready to go, so in the collection it is. Next up with VHSs, unfortunately I only have the first one, couldn't find the second one. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I love these movies. They're super nostalgic for me. I remember loving them as a kid. And they're not necessarily amazing or even really that good, but Jim Carrey is flawless in these movies, and he's what really sells them. All right, time for another sealed VHS, and that is going to be Airplane 2, the sequel. I have yet to find Airplane 1 on VHS, but I did manage to find this one. I love the Airplane movies. I actually have yet to watch the sequel, but if it's anything like Caddyshack 2, it's probably not as good, but we'll have to wait and see. We got another sealed VHS here, and this one is a cool one, Batman Returns. Not the biggest fan of the Tim Burton Batman universe, but they are influential movies in film history in terms of box office and what it did for production design and such. So this was a really cool find. I was able to find this sealed. Definitely wanted to throw that in the collection because it really looks good on the shelf. It's got a really nice profile on the side. Next up, another VHS. This one is open, but nonetheless, it's still a fun one to have. From Dusk Till Dawn. This is a fun movie with both George Clooney, Quentin Tarantino, also Harvey Keitel. One of the few amazing vampire movies. It's not even really that good. It's amazing for a vampire movie. It's not the best movie in the world, but it is one that I have some fond memories of, and it is on my shelf. Another nostalgic movie of mine with fond memories is Mars Attacks, which I was able to find on VHS. I love this movie. It's not necessarily, again, it's not amazing, it's not incredible, but it is nostalgic for me when I was really into aliens and abductions and stuff, and I really loved this movie. It's still a lot of fun though, and highly recommended if you're looking for something corny. Here's a quick one. I can get all three of these done at once. First up, The Naked Gun. Second up, The Naked Gun 2.5, which this one's actually sealed. And third, The Naked Gun 33 1/3. These movies are just, they're not necessarily all good, but they are a lot of fun, especially the first one. Is one of the best parody films ever, in my opinion, up there with Airplane, and I just love these movies. They're so much fun, even though they're not necessarily amazing. Rounding it out with two more sealed ones here. First one up is Spaceballs, and I love, this movie is not the best ever, it's not Mel Brooks' best, but I love the case for this one because it says Spaceballs, the video. I love the marketing jokes in this movie, they're really good. This movie is so much fun to have sealed on my shelf because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and seeing the parody of Star Wars sealed is pretty awesome. Next up, probably my favorite of all the sealed movies I have, and I'm so glad I have this, and that is Who Framed Roger Rabbit on VHS, sealed. I love this movie. We showed it on the podcast recently. We both love this movie. It is so groundbreaking for animation and live action kind of coming together, and it is really cool to see this on the shelf sealed, and this one has wowed quite a few people. And the last VHS before I go through a recent haul is actually going to be Shrek. I do have the original VHS of Shrek, which has a really weird box with this weird space saver, and the VHS comes out and still leaves that little white block in there. It's a little odd. I remember seeing that was odd when I was a kid, but I'm not really the biggest fan of the Shrek movies, but this was so, we watched this all the time when I was a kid, and I knew I wanted to have it on the shelf just because it's a great thing to have, and it's a cool conversation piece. I mean, what's that weird like space saver doing there? Who knows? Alrighty, time for the big one. This is the recent haul of VHS tapes that I have yet to actually kind of put into my collection and alphabetize. So I'm just going to kind of quickly fire through these because they're all Disney movies. We know why people would have them, and let's just kind of go through them in a speed run. Starting off, we have The Aristocats. We have The Three Caballeros. We have Dinosaur. We also have Pocahontas. We've got Cinderella. We've got Dumbo. We've got Sleeping Beauty. There's just so many of these, holy shit. The Jungle Book. Aladdin. Mary Poppins and Mulan. These all have my family's name on them because my mom would take them to her classes. Rescuers Down Under, better than the first movie in my opinion. The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Bambi, which Bambi is, oh man, that's a sad movie. Who wants to talk about that one? Toy Story 2, which I have on VHS. Peter Pan. A Bug's Life, which is one of the variant covers of the movie, I believe. Snow White, and the original Toy Story. So that's it for that recent haul from my parents' house. They were getting rid of a bunch of these white clamshell movies, and I knew I wanted to take them for my collection. Oh boy, that's a lot of movies. But that's going to bring it to the end of my collection. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video doesn't go on for too long. If it does, thank you for sticking through. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. Please like, comment, sign up for all the notifications. It really helps us out. Any like, any comment, any view we can get is fantastic. If you guys want to see more, I am always kind of looking for collections to take and kind of things to find whenever I go out to kind of pawn shops or stores or anything like that. So I can do updates in the future. It'd be kind of be fun to do one of these every year, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the things that I already said, because I like to repeat myself when I'm in the moment like this, and we'll see you next time here on the Drive Back Podcast YouTube channel.